National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
The National Federation of the Blind advances the lives of its members and all blind people in the United States. We know that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. Our collective power, determination, and diversity achieve the aspirations of all blind people.
Accessible technology. Accessible technology. Anything is possible and everything's accessible. Accessible technology.
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our practical accessibility testing presentation. My name is Kennedy Zimnick. I'm an Access Tech Specialist here at the National Federation of the Blind, and I have two of my colleagues here, Carl and Dan. Do you guys want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, I'm Carl Belanger. I'm a non-visual accessibility analyst here at the NFB. Happy to be with you all today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Doggett. I am an IT accessibility specialist with the Department of Disabilities and also happy to be here.
Great. Yeah, like I said, today's presentation is our practical accessibility testing. I have our accessibility testing best practices slide up right now, but I'm just going to quickly go through what the last module was before we get into what we're talking about today, which is just practical accessibility testing, the demonstrations, actually showing you guys how to do it. I'm going to do a quick recap of Module 3 because this module directly goes and is related to that first module. Today's presentation is all going to be demonstrations. The last presentation was all giving you the principles and how accessibility testing works, just in slide and text format. Again, I'm going to be quickly going through these. This isn't the main presentation. I just wanted to give you a quick recap of what we already talked about in the last presentation so you're not completely lost. Okay, and we'll have some time for questions throughout. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll get to you when we can. Okay. So this is all about accessibility testing and how to do digital accessibility. Hopefully, you guys already have an okay idea with what digital accessibility is coming into this. Because you'll need that kind of for, what we're testing today, but pretty much for something to be digitally accessible, it has to be able to be used with a keyboard and screen reader only. That is the software that blind and low vision people use to access their computer. So that is basically what digital accessibility is. Okay. So a brief recap of accessibility principles, just a really quick introduction. We have the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These are the guidelines that we are testing for, and if something has these guidelines in it, if a website is following guidelines, then it will be an accessible system or an accessible website or an accessible piece of software. So WCAG are the guidelines that designers design towards for accessibility. And also in this presentation, we have our first two modules, which was an intro to accessibility and how to read VPAT as well. We have those on our YouTube channel, and those links are in this presentation as well. So why test for accessibility? Misleading VPATs. So a VPAT or an ACR, an accessibility conformance report, are reports made by the companies themselves, the ones that created the software. So they're the ones writing down whether their piece of software or tech meets these accessibility standards. So you do have to be wary sometimes, and you just have to realize that a lot of these reports, these companies are making themselves. New updates since last VPAT, incomplete, outdated information. These all relate back to ACRs and VPATs. And of course, user experience. We want these systems and whatever you're giving your students to be accessible. And of course, we're going to relate everything back to the equivalent access standards, Law 7-910. And of course, that requires accessibility testing. That's the whole reason we're putting on this training today. So, like I just said, in alignment to 7-910, the equivalent access requirements for students with disabilities, these are just a couple paragraphs out of there. Invitation for bids or requests for proposals for digital tools require a vendor to submit an accessibility conformance report, ACR, that includes a voluntary product accessibility template, a VPAT. Establish and something else that's in the law. Establish a process to evaluate a digital tool being considered for development or purchase for conformity with the requirements of accessibility. So in a few words, it's just saying the software that you purchase for students in the classroom has to be accessible, and there has to be a process for evaluating this accessibility. Okay, so we're going to be talking about a few methods of accessibility testing that anybody can pick up. It doesn't require a lot of technical experience. We know a lot of the LEAs are going to be either assigning people or people are going to be stepping up that might not have as much digital accessibility experience or none at all. So we came up with a few methods here. Well, we didn't come up with them, but we're going to be sharing a few methods with you that anybody can pick up, and we try to keep it as simple as possible. And of course, please ask questions. So the two main ways you can do accessibility testing is automated testing and manual testing. So automated testing is a quick way to check basic accessibility. It's a good way to test if things exist or if they don't exist. So for example, a big piece of accessibility is having headings in whatever your software or website is. Headings make it so that users can navigate easily and faster just with their screen reader rather than if they don't have headings. So automated testing is good for checking if something has headings or if it doesn't. It's not good for checking whether the headings make sense or if the heading level makes sense, things like that. Automated testing helps inform manual testing. So, of course, the two are in pair with each other. There are free and paid tools. We're going to be talking about some free automated tools that anybody can use. And then we're going to also be showing you and talking about a paid automated tool that is bigger, that is paid, of course, but it can sift through whole websites. And you'll be hearing me talk, and you'll be hearing us and seeing us demonstrate a lot of these principles with websites, even though a lot of the tools and software that you guys might purchase for your classroom aren't going to be web-based or websites. A lot of the principles are the same between websites and software. So we use it interchangeably sometimes. They're all the same principles for testing. And then we have some pros and cons. Pros, they're quick and easy to perform, catches the easy stuff, like I said, whether things are there, if they're not. Free options, a lot of different options, and you can get it right in your browser as a browser extension. Some cons, a lot of the points you have to confirm manually. It only catches about 30% of issues. There's no context or user experience in mind. These are just, this is just software doing this testing. It's just a computer doing the testing. So there's no human side, and there's no user experience taken into account, which is of course important. Manual testing will always be needed. That's a big piece of it. Okay, manual testing. So manual testing gets into subjective tests. So it's not just catching whether something is there or not. It's actually going in and seeing, to what degree does this work? Does this work for certain people? Are there different methods of doing this? Like I said, the heading example is easy. Is it the correct heading level? Is the alternative text for this image actually good alternative text? So of course it's verification of automated findings. That's a big piece of manual testing, is using your automated findings to help inform you for your testing. manual testing actually tests user experience, which is really the most important part of this whole thing. How good is the experience for the students, and are they getting equivalent access to the material being taught or the software that's being shared. And you can do a couple of things with manual testing. You can use a screen reader, which tests screen reader accessibility, or you can do some low vision testing, which is what I'm going to show you. And you can also do some non-screen reader testing. So just with your keyboard, what can you do without a screen reader? So I'll show you all that in a couple minutes. Carl, did you have anything to add for manual testing?
I think you mostly covered it. Yeah, just it's very important to always manual test. No automated test can cover all the issues, and there are tools that purport to use AI and things. It's a little beyond the scope of this, but there is no substitute for good manual testing. Just getting in there with a screen reader, getting in there with the keyboard, and just testing.
Yep, great, thanks. Okay, so some best practices for accessibility testing. You want to ensure procurement expectations align with testing procedures. So how you're going to use the software is how you should be testing it. You should develop a process that is scalable and sustainable. Of course, you're not going to be, you're not just going to do it once, or, a school isn't just going to do it once. So you want to come up with a process to do this over and over again. You want to test on, mobile devices. You want to test on Chromebooks if you're using a Chromebook, a tablet if your students are going to use a tablet. So whatever method or mode they're going to use to access the information, you should also test with that mode. And again, I'm flying through these slides just because it's just a review. I sent it to everyone, so please look at it on your own. A couple do's and don'ts of accessibility testing. So you want to do test unique pages or templates. So websites or software, a lot of the time they just use 3 or 4 templates for their many different pages, so you don't have to test every single page. You want to use assistive technology, AT, to ensure browser and AT combinations. So if you have a website, you don't just want to test with Chrome, you also want to test with Firefox or Edge, things like that. A couple of things you want to avoid or don't do. You don't want to forget to plan out your testing, including realistic user conditions and test cases. So again, this is what manual testing picks up is user experience. Okay, I don't want to run out of time on my actual portion. So I know I threw a lot of information at you guys. If you have questions, please ask them. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen again and actually get into what I was going to show everyone today. This is nfb.org, and the 2 pieces that I'm going to be talking about today is testing without a screen reader, and then also testing for low vision accessibility. So low vision accessibility really deals with 3 main fields. It deals with a visible focus indicator throughout the website. And again, I'm going to be saying website, but this applies to all software. It's not just websites. So a visible focus indicator is visible throughout the website. So when I tab through the website, there will be a visible focus indicator everywhere I tab. You'll see it in a second. It's easier to show you. The second piece is text and image contrast. So you can use a contrast checker, which I'll show you here in a second, to actually test the contrast of your text and then your background color to make sure there's sufficient contrast so people can read it easily. And then the third piece is scalability and how well you can resize the page and have everything still visible to you. So when you resize the page, meaning I'm just pressing Control+ in my browser, how do the menu items change? How do the elements on the page change? If it's inaccessible, then it'll just blow up and you'll only see, one portion of one element of the site, and we don't want that because some people need to increase the size of the page or increase the scale using, third-party software. Today, I'm just going to be doing it in the browser. So the first piece is our visible focus indicator, and how you do this. Anybody can do this. What I'm going to be showing you takes no special software. I'm just in Chrome. I'm just going to press the tab key. So pressing the tab key brings you to every link and button on a page, and we want the focus order, or the tab order you'll hear as well, to be top left to bottom right, left to right, just how we read a book. So if the focus order was jumping around, it makes it much harder to navigate because some people use screen magnification software that jumps around where the focus is. So it's very important to keep it logical so people don't get confused as to where it is. You'll see what I'm talking about. So this is an accessible website. Of course, this is our nfb.org. This is our website. I have some demo websites here that I'll show you in a second that shows you that are purposely inaccessible, that shows you what it'll look like when it is inaccessible. So I'm just going to press the tab key. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I press the tab key, you'll see a black rectangle to where the focus order is focused. So now it's around the NFB logo, welcome, members, donate, join us, it'll keep going. It might change a little bit. You see now that the color is different. It's not just a black rectangle. If it's a menu item or a button, it may do that, but it's up to the designer, really. So as I go through here, now you'll see the black rectangle again. It was just on the Visit the Press room. Now it's at Blind Equality Achievement Month. And as I keep going, it's focusing on all of the links, like I said, all the links and buttons. And it's going top left to bottom right. So this is good. This is what we want. If somebody was using screen magnification software, they wouldn't be too confused using the site because it's not jumping around. The order isn't jumping around. And it's a visible focus indicator. Let me open up one of these sites. Okay. So this site is a purposely inaccessible site. As I press the tab key, now you might notice the pink highlight around the little pencil icons. But when I tab away from those, there is, here I'll zoom in so it's easier to see, which the site is inaccessible, so it's not going to be easy to do that. Now you see the focus indicator. They're white brackets with a white background, so that's very hard to see. That wouldn't be considered a visible focus indicator. So that's something I would flag. So when you're doing these tests, a visible focus indicator or on focus will be one of the criteria that are on that VPAT. So you might make a comment in that criteria, there was not a visible focus indicator throughout. Something like that. Okay, so the next piece I want to show everyone is color contrast and how to test for color contrast. So I'm going to be using the WebAIM color contrast checker. If you just Google contrast checker, it's the first link that comes up. We'll also put the link out to everybody in chat as well. I'll do it after my piece. It's just webaim.org/resources/contrast checker. And this lets you choose two colors, a foreground, which is going to be your text color, and a background color. And it tells you whether it passes or fails WCAG AA. So remember in the beginning, I mentioned WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. AA and AAA are the levels of conformity. So AA is what we're looking for it to be accessible. So this text that I have here already is a fail. So you can't use that contrast. In the VPAT, just like with focus indicator, you'd look for color contrast or image contrast in one of the criteria, and then you'd make a comment. This does not pass AA criteria. So how you might use this, and contrast is a little bit easier and for people to tell that don't know, a lot about accessibility, because color contrast kind of affects everybody. Honestly, everybody wants good contrast. Our website, it's white background with a lot of black text, blue text, green text. So there's going to be plenty of text contrast. But one of these demo sites, they don't have that. So let me show you this. So this is Mars Commuter. It's just a fake website, like I said. And this text does not look like it has sufficient contrast. This kind of light gray blue text on this dark blue background. So how you would get these colors with the checker, there's a couple different ways. If you know the hex value, then use that, but that's not always readily apparent, obviously. So you can actually do this, and you can use the color picker. So now, oops, sorry about that. Here, I might have to share my whole screen. Okay. So now you can use the color picker, and you don't have to guess. So I'm going to use this. Find the dropper. If you open up the color picker, there's a little dropper icon that you can use, and then you just find the color that you want on the window that you're looking for. So foreground color, that's going to be our actual text color. And then background color. Let's choose the background. Okay, so let's see. So now normal text, WCAG AA fail, WCAG AAA fail. Now it does have large text pass, but you really shouldn't use this large text section unless it is large text and you know it is, because a lot of this text is just normal size text. So that would be a fail. And like I said before, you would find in the ACR, in the VPAT, you'd find the criteria that has to do with color contrast, and then you just write down that it fails. It does not meet AA standards for color contrast. All right, so the third and last piece of low vision testing is scalability. So a lot of the time, people who are low vision scale up the size of a page, whether it's in the browser and they just do it in the browser, or if they're actually using their screen magnification software. So when you do it in browser, you just do Control+, and then as I do it, this is an accessible website, of course, is nfb.org. So this is, the elements should shift and change as you increase. So you saw the banner disappear. And as I increase even more, now we see this hamburger menu with our community get involved. So from 250% to 300, that changes. So this is good. This is what you want. So now, even if I was all the way at 500%, I could still access these menu items. You can still access everything on the page at 500%. Everything is, now of course the pictures are a little blown up, so the pictures don't look the greatest, but you can see all the text and everything changed and adapted well. Now on one of these inaccessible sites, as I increase the scale, these top menu items don't change. So now I can only see one section of the page, and I have to use my own scroll to see everything. And this is not an efficient way to view a website. efficiency is very important in accessibility. You don't want to increase the time too much that people have. So those were the main things that I had to present on. The three things of, like I said before, color contrast and text contrast, scalability, and then a visible focus indicator. These are three easy things that anybody can test for in the software. And like I've been saying all day, we're talking about websites, but a lot of this stuff also applies, and all this stuff also applies to standalone software you might be getting.
Okay, so thank you, Kennedy. So at this point, we're going to, I'm going to demo some of the most common automated tools. So these are free tools for you to use, and I'll actually provide links to them in the chat as well. So just going to do sort of a little bit of a run through of these. As Kennedy was saying earlier, automated tests are just the start. You will always need to do a manual test, and we'll sort of discuss some of the limitations of these as we go through. But at Department of Disabilities, I spent a lot of my time testing state websites and other products to make sure that everything is accessible for our constituents. And we always do both an automated and manual test for every web page that we do. So we're going to get started with, so there's two automated testers that we're going to go over. One is Wave, the other is Axe DevTools, and we're going to start with Wave. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to throw this link into the chat so you have access to this, and you could take a look at this on your own, or I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through it together. So let me go ahead and do that. Share screen 2. All right. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen now. So Wave is an automated tool from WebAIM, which is a digital accessibility nonprofit. And basically there are two ways to sort of access this tool. You can go to their website, which I linked in the chat, and type. So if this is a website that you are testing, you could type that website right here, and it will go to the reader. So that's one way you can go through it, or you can, let me just move this scroll bar. Or you could download a browser extension and view the website that way. I highly recommend, if you can, to download the browser extension. In my personal experience using this sort of web portal, it gets a little bit laggy. I don't know if that's based on the price that I pay for my internet or just this tool in general, but I tend to find myself waiting around a little bit longer doing it through the portal. So I download the browser extension, and I can get it either by right-clicking, I'm on PC, and accessing it here, or I can go to my browser extensions and turning it on right here. So this is Wave. And so right now, I'm also looking at one of our fake, poorly done websites. And this is sort of a way for us to sort of go through these. I have Wave here on the left-hand side, and it's broken down into a series of tabs. There's a summary tab, a details tab, reference, a order, structure, and a contrast tab. And so the summary just gives you a quick highlights. And this is really, really, bare, like base level, what's going on. Biggest things you want to concern yourselves are anything in red. Those are where, those are your errors. These are things that need to be fixed. Things like alerts are things like, hey, we might want to look at this, and things that are in green are icons that are, hey, this is a good thing to have. This is an accessible feature. So right now, obviously, I'm not getting any real information. So I'm going to move over to the details tab. And this is where all of my information is going to be. So if you're looking at this and you feel overwhelmed, you are not alone. The very first time that I used Wave, I turned it off immediately because I thought it broke my computer. But this is, you know, this is sort of one of the features of Wave. And what's nice about what we can do with Wave is we can hide or turn off some of these things so that we can look at them individually. So right now I'm going to only concern myself with the missing alternative text. So these are images that do not have alt text for them. So I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck these boxes next to these alerts, and you could see over in the website, those icons are all disappearing from the page. And anytime I use Wave, I mean, I can't look at it and read everything all at once. So I always have to sort of, winnow it down to this. Okay, so as we can see here, we've got 3 images that are missing alternative text, which means that anyone using a screen reader, they will not be able to, the screen reader will not pick up any of the information about the images and possibly losing some important details there. And so for me to figure out where these are, if I click on each specific icon, it will highlight the specific image that is missing alt text. So I'm going to just click on all 3 of these, and it's showing me, okay, so these 3 images are missing alternative text. So there's an issue right there. And so I can also, so I'm going to unclick those so we know that those need to have alt text. If I click on this one here, this is 5 linked images missing alternative text. So this is slightly different. So these are not just images, but these are button links to other websites that are also missing alt text. So these require alt text as well. And the best practices when we use, the reason why these are separated out is because generally speaking, when you do alt text for images that take you to another location, you want to treat those a little bit differently. You don't want to say, a computer. You want to actually, tell the user where that button is linking them, what website that will be taking them to. So that's why those are separated out. So the other thing here, we have a missing form label, and that is our search form here. And if you don't understand what these details are, there is a little information icon here, or a reference icon, and that's our next tab. If I click on it, it will take me right to it and explains everything what that means. So Wave is really, really good in making things digestible and easy to understand. So that's one of the things I really like about Wave. And so there's our errors. And then also, as Kennedy was talking about contrast errors, looking at that, you could also do that using these automated tests. So right now, we've already highlighted, without having to use an extra color checker, text that has low contrast. So if I highlight over it, you'll see the text box, or the text here, that gray text on top of the white. That's very low contrast. It's something that we need to work on or fix. So pretty easy to sort of navigate that. Now, what's really important about low contrast text is that this really only works when there is text on a web page background. If it is if the text is actually within an image, like right now I'm looking at a picture of a keyboard, and it has different the keys on the keyboard are different letters. Screen readers will not pick up those. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, in this situation, your alt text would not tell you all of the different lettered keys, but that's important information. Like if you go to a website that has an image that has text in it, we see it all the time with flyers, announcements where they just post an image, and there's no way for a screen reader to read that because all it's reading is that there's an image there. So that's another reason why it's really important to do our manual testing, because these automated testers will not pick that up. Okay, so gone through some of these, just, we can kind of go through here and see some of these different alerts, but this sort of gives us an idea of how this works. Your order, this is sort of your tab order that Kennedy was talking about. So we start at the top, we move down, we go left to right, and it's nice because it highlights each and numbers their tab order, so we know, okay, this works in a logical order, left to right, up to down. And then also we have our heading structure, which is important for us as well. So this is Wave. Let's see, what do I, so now I guess, let's see, do I want to, yeah, so you can, what's great about Wave is it's supported in all browsers. You don't have to download anything. You can just go through their web portal and use it that way. So I know, some school systems might have restrictions on what you can or can't download. So Wave is really good with that regard. All right, so the next one, the next automated tool I'm going to show you is by DQ. And DQ is a very large digital accessibility company. And I'm going to throw their tool in the chat. Let's see if I can find the chat. There we go. It's a long link. Apologies. So that is Axe. And let me go ahead and show you how Axe works. So, oh, also, and if you're using this as a browser extension, the easiest way to get rid of it is just to refresh your browser and it's gone. So the way Axe works is this is actually, it does not have a web portal itself. So it has to be a browser extension. And so the way that you open your Axe is you go to your inspect element. And so here I'm on a PC, so I can right click and I can go down to inspect. And here your inspect window comes up. And I'm not a developer. My HTML is fairly limited, so I don't like to spend a lot of time here. But what we have here is if I move over, we have all these tabs.
Hey,
and all the way.
Dan,
Yes.
sorry, could you just point out that where that hex value is, right at the right? Yeah, right, kind of right below in that window, that styles pane. That's where that hex, color is found.
Oh yeah. Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean my HTML is so limited that I don't even bother looking at that stuff so much. So
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. So if I'm in my inspect element here, and then since I've downloaded the Axe tool, I can go over. It's the furthest tab over, and here's my Axe Dev Tools tool. And so right now, like I have my inspect element at the bottom. It's where it's easiest for me to see. However, it usually, if you've never used it before, it will be on the side here. Sometimes this is a little bit easier for vertically. What I actually tend to do, like my preference is, I actually have it pop out, and so then like I have a second screen, so I can just move it over here, and I have access to the full page while also having my automated tester. And so, all right, so here is DevTools, or here's Axe, and you'll see on here there's a lot of lock boxes here, and that's because there are so this is a product from a company. So there is a base version that is free, and that will do a full page scan. However, there are other tiers that you can unlock for different things. But doing their free scan will give you all of the same features that you would get from Wave. So I'm going to go ahead and click full page scan, and it's going to go through my page. Oh, another thing that's important to point out about both Wave and Axe. This is not for, like, when it's showing you these results, it's not for an entire website. This is just for the page that you are on. So right now in this website, I'm on the home page. So any of the things that are being brought up in the tester are just for this page here. So if I go over to the next page, the laptops and notebooks, this is another page that, you know, will require testing. So something to consider for this. That being said, if you look at a home page and there are a ton of issues, chances are there will also be issues on other pages. Okay, so here is, here I have my report, and, you know, most of these are just, you know, so it says a total of 40 issues, and you can see here the layout is a little bit different. Notice that there's not a bunch of popped up icons on the page. I could look at the web page the same way I would normally. It's not like Wave where it sort of changes what's on the screen, but I can open these lists up, these curated lists. And so this says elements must meet minimum color contrast ratio thresholds. And so, you know, as we know from using Wave, we have some color contrast issues. And the way that we see what elements have these issues is by clicking this highlight icon. And as I've clicked that already, we have text that has been highlighted, and it's very easy to see where that is. If I move over here, it will move over to the next item. So it says that there are 13 items that don't meet the color contrast. And this is like, you know, this is super easy. You know, that's one of the things I really like about these automated tests, is finding these color contrast issues are very easy with them. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Highlight. And again, here's another one. Our images must have alternate text. So opening this up, I'm going to click highlight, and it's going to show me the same results. So both of these testers, they work the same way. They're looking at the code of the web page, and they're noting when an image is being you know, posted in, and whether or not there is a specific alt tag for that image. And if it's not there, that's where these issues come from. Now, is this alt, like if you have an image like the keyboard that I was bringing up before, so that was not brought up as an issue. So this does have alt text for it, most likely. Do I know that that alt text is good for the context of this website? I don't know yet, because I haven't looked at that. And that's another you know, reason why it's important to do manual testing, is so that to ensure that the alternative text, you know, meets, you know, what you're looking for in those images. Okay, so gone through all this. So we've sort of done this before. So this is, it works similar to how Wave was. Personally, I kind of prefer using Axe, and mostly it's because it does not change anything on the website itself until I start highlighting things. So it's easier. It's an easier layout for me as I'm going through. Also, with the inspect window, I could move this out and have full access to that page. Whereas in Wave, this bar, the Wave bar that gives you all the information, it's always going to be on the left-hand side of the screen, and there's nothing you could do about it. It's just right there. And it's something that I find a little bit, a little clunky for my purposes. However, I do really like the way that Wave sort of explains everything here on the page. Something important to note, though, when it comes to, get rid of this. So Axe is not available for Safari. So it only works as a browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. So if you are on Mac and Safari is your primary browser, it will not test for that. So something to consider. Let me see. Let me think about some other pros and cons. I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, I like the layout a little bit better for Axe. However, it is a, you know, uh, a product from a private company, so that there are certain features that we don't have access to. Some of those are like sending, like accessibility reports to your company's Jira, so that your developers can go back and fix those things. That's specific, that's something that is really only necessary for, people who are developing websites. So it's probably not something that we would really need for our purposes here. But these are, like I said, the two probably most used automated sites or automated testers. And I want to just take a look at the chat now and see if anyone has any questions or wants me to sort of demo anything else with either of these tools. All right, seems like no questions. I hope that's not, and I know that using these tools can sometimes feel a little overwhelming, especially if you're not like a developer. I am not a developer myself. I have come to web accessibility from an accessibility standpoint. So I have come to websites in HTML that way. It's usually the other way around. But really, once you start using these tools, and you follow through and they explain what they're doing, it does get easier and easier. And again, these automated tools, they're very easy to use, but I do recognize the understanding it takes a little while for you. Okay, so I don't see any questions in the chat, so I think that's everything from my end. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And I think Carl is going to discuss manual testing next.
Certainly. So you've seen the ways to test without, any special software. You've seen the single page. And before I get into screen readers, I'm going to talk very briefly and show a little bit of a report of a multi-page automated tool. So these tools that I'm going to talk about, one, are tools that we give it a URL, and it will go through the entire website that it has access to. Now, if you need to log in or do something special to access it, there may be extra steps you need to do. But it will go through and scan an entire site or a portion of a site and give you a report. The one I'm going to be demoing today is called SortSite. And this is one that we use here at the NFB. There are many others out there. We picked this one because we felt it gave reports that were reasonably readable by a person and not just all technical data. It's pretty easy to use, reasonably accessible, and reasonably affordable. A lot of tools out there by a lot of these accessibility companies are targeted more so toward the enterprise or like a specialized solution for the individual client, whereas SortSite is just a reasonably affordable package. You buy it, install it, based on the number of users you have, and you're off and running. All right, so this is the accessibility validation report for the before and after demonstration site that we have used previously in other modules. So we have here a table of different issues, and I'll go through some of these and talk about kind of how you'd read this, how you'd work with it.
Font, accessibility valid, row 23 out of table links, main landmark site report heading level 1. This tab shows accessibility issues, indicating problems for older users, people with disabilities, or accessibility needs. Automated.
So it has a little explanation here of what this tab shows that I'm on.
Alongside
down arrowing.
Table with COM2 CAG 2.1.
And here we first have a summary table that just shows the rules that were tested and the number of issues found on how many pages.
A row 2 graphic section 508 2017 key com edge of table. A row 3 row 4.
I'm not going to worry about this table for
CAG
now,
2
just kind of skipping past
key com out of table with 24 rows and 4 columns, row 1 column 1 priority.
And now here's the real meat and potatoes of this report here.
Column 2 description and URL. Column 3 guideline and line number. Column 4 count. Row 2 Edge of table. Row 3 priority. Row 2 priority. Column 1 through 3 heading level 2 level A 18 issues on 11 pages.
So this inaccessible website has 18 issues on 11 pages. I'll go down.
Row 3 priority description and URL column 2 all fields in a group of input fields. For example, phone numbers need accessible names.
And then it gives you a little description.
Guideline and line number column 3 link tag 2.1 AF86 links.
It gives you a link to the WCAG or Section 508 rule that this is violating.
Count column 4 button 2 pages.
And it says this occurred on 2 different pages.
Description and
We'll go back to the description column and go down.
Row 4 all mouse out handlers should have an equivalent on blur handler.
So this is related to keyboard focus, and
L.
when something happens with a mouse, it needs to be able to happen with a keyboard.
Count column 4 button 10 pages. Guideline.
And this has on every page. So I'm going to show
priority column 1 button list pages.
If we hit this list pages button, the table will expand.
Description and URL column 2 are on mouse. Row 5 some users are unable to use a mouse, so use the keyboard instead. Add an equivalent keyboard event handler to help these users. Row 6 link HTTPS.
So it gave us a little description about, essentially what I said, that there needs to be a way for, instead of moving the mouse away from something, the keyboard can activate it. And then you have the link and line number of where the issue is on these pages.
Row 4 priority column 1 button list pages. Description and URL.
And I just collapsed
Row
it.
5 all on mouse over handler should have an equivalent. Priority column 1 button list pages graphic crit. Row 6 button list. Description and URL column 2 alt text should not be an image file name.
Alt text should not be an image file name.
Row 7 alt text should not contain placeholders like picture or spacer.
Should not contain
You have started
words like picture or spacer.
Row 8 each element must contain text or an I. Row 9 untag violates nesting rule. Row 10 HTML form control has no exception.
And then so in row 9 there, the end tag in the HTML, some of these are a little more targeted at developers. So you might run a scan, say, and then send this to the company that developed the software or talk to their development. And some of these will be more valuable to the developers. But you can go through and look at these issues, and then you can go through with manual testing, which we'll get to next, and kind of validate some of them. So this is just a brief look at a sort site report. I will just show kind of
Row 24. Row 4 guide. Section 5. Row 4
you have this different menus and things you can access the sort site menus.
Accessibility validation.
You can scan the entire site or just a portion. You can customize rules, things like that.
Accessibility.
So that is sort site.
Sort site dialog. Do you want to no button up?
We're not going to save this report.
Insert.
And then I'm going to, in a minute, I'll restart for the manual testing. So manual testing with a screen reader is very important for web accessibility because the way the site reads things, the way it displays with a screen reader is very key. So as we've demonstrated today, and as Kennedy talked a little bit about at the beginning, the manual test can, or sorry, the automated test can tell, does this image have alt text? Does this page have headings? Does this form field have a label? It can't tell whether any of those actually make sense. You could label every graphic on your site ABC123, and some automated checkers might flag, hey, there's some graphics with the same name, but otherwise they're going to pass. Doesn't mean they're of any use to a blind person, though. That's where manual testing comes in. So with manual testing, you go through with the screen reader and you listen to what the screen reader says, how it says it, and how it correlates to what's visually on the screen. You may find a screen reader misses things. You may find that the order a screen reader reads something in doesn't match with how you would look at it visually. You may find any number of issues going through. Now, to help you test with a screen reader, there are a couple settings and things you might want to turn on. So for Windows, there are two primary screen readers we recommend, either NVDA or JAWS for Windows. NVDA is a free downloadable screen reader from nvaccess.org. JAWS for Windows is paid through the company Freedom Scientific, or their parent company Vispero. And either way, whichever one you choose, they both can do accessibility testing. They both are, viable. And as for which one you should use whichever your students are using. That's another very important thing that Kennedy alluded to earlier. If you're, today I will be demonstrating this on a Windows computer, and I'll be talking about some keyboard shortcuts for Windows screen readers. All the screen readers, the keystroke may not be exactly the same, but they have ways of doing the same thing. If your students are on Macs or iPads or Chromebooks, that is what you should be doing your manual testing with. There are sometimes differences in the way browsers and screen readers and even operating systems interact with things on the web or with software that you've installed. And what works with Windows 11 and JAWS may not work quite so well with Mac OS and VoiceOver. So that way, if you test with whatever technology your students are using, you can reduce the work for yourself, and that you don't have to test every possible combination. And you can also make sure that you're going to have the experience most consistent with whatever your students are going to have. Now, you may still need to test with multiple systems if your students are using multiple systems, but this can be a much more streamlined process. So for today, I'll be using NVDA, as I said, which is the free option. So if you have NVDA up and running,
NVDA menu. Preferences submenu. Settings.
I want to show you in settings.
NVDA settings. Speech to Braille 3. Audio 4. Vision 5.
In the vision category, you'll want to enable some of these checkboxes.
Vision property page. Configure visual aids. Visual highlight grouping. Enable highlighting checkbox checked all plus E.
You'll definitely want to have this one checked. This enables it all.
Highlight system focus checkbox checked all plus.
Highlight system focus. That's if you were to tab around or use your, arrow keys or whatever to move around the screen without a screen reader, that would be showing, and this just highlights it.
Highlight navigator object checkbox.
These
screen visual highlight group highlight browse mode cursor checkbox checked all.
Browse mode cursor is the other main one you want to have highlighted. You can highlight navigator object as well. It won't hurt. Be careful not to check this next one.
Screen curtain grouping. Make screen black. Immediate effect. Checkbox not checked.
As it says, it will turn your screen black. This is a privacy shield for blind users who don't want, who may be working in public or whatever and don't want someone peeking over their shoulder or seeing their credit card information or what they're purchasing on Amazon or something. So yeah, don't, be careful not to accidentally check that box. Good news is if you were to restart NVDA with a hotkey or something, it would reset itself and you would not have to worry about that. But so I definitely recommend checking those.
Screen share.
I just escaped out of that.
NVDA prep tools view speech viewer S.
The other tool
screen sharing meeting controls window
is speech viewer.
Mute currently unmuted. Alt plus the button. Audio sub.
If you're finding it hard to pay attention to the screen reader's voice or just want the visual, backup of what the speech is saying, you can turn on the speech viewer, which will allow it to display, the text of what NVDA is speaking. So I'm going to turn that off because sometimes it can block parts of the screen. And I want to make sure you can see everything I'm doing.
Preference tools submit speech viewer checked. Screen sharing.
All right. So, and JAWS has highlighting as well. VoiceOver has some of that also. So whatever you're using, there should be some tools to help with this. With that all, with that all out of the way, time to get on to the main reason we're here, going through a web page with a screen reader. I'll start a screen share one more time.
While you're doing that, Carl, I'm going to launch our post-training poll just in case anybody has to leave. Please answer these few questions. Thanks.
Cool.
Screen sharing. Insert title here. Insert.
Okay,
Table with 3.
so we're on another one of the DQ demo sites.
Out of table.
So when you're using a screen reader, big thing to note, you'll only want to use the keyboard. Screen readers are not designed to work with the mouse, and you'll not get an accurate test if you use it. So simplest way to navigate a web page, down arrow. Up and down arrow, move you by line.
Banner landmark menu bar menu item awesome recipes. Out of menu bar main landmark heading level 1 recipe dashboard with heading level 2 graphic decorative icon. Heading level.
All right, so you heard graphic decorative icon. When you're doing alt text, if the image is just for decorative or a spacer or eye candy, you want to leave the alt text empty, which will tell the screen reader it's an image to be ignored, and you don't want to interact, and it'll just hide it from the screen reader. You don't want to use labels like decorative icon.
Heading level 2 eggs used. Heading level 2, 10. Heading level 2 eggs.
And we have some stats
Heading
here.
level 2 graphic decorative icon.
Another decorative icon.
Heading level 2, 11. Heading level 2 recipes made. Heading level 2 graphic decorative. Heading level 2, 4. Heading level 2 grease fires. Heading level 2, 6-month average yummy. Heading level 2. Heading level 2. Heading level 2.
And we have a list here that's all in heading level 2. If I up and down arrow, it doesn't read anything, but if I right and left arrow,
50 average in MAR list item level 44 average in upper list item level 1.
you know,
Space.
it gives some information and kind of moves me through the list, but it's not very efficient. I'll just keep down arrowing.
Out of list heading level 2 yumminess. Heading level 2, 45.38. Graphic edit. Unlabeled graphic to get missing image descriptions. Open the context menu.
So we have a thing that just says it's a graphic and it says edit, and now we have an unlabeled graphic here.
Chocolate cake. Table with 3 rows and 2 columns. Row 1 column 1 prep time. Column 2, 20. Row 2 column 1 cook time.
And so we have now a table here of the prep time and cook time.
Column 2, 30 min. Prep time row 1, 20 min. Cooked. Difficulty row 3 beginner. Out of table button cook chocolate.
And so we have some information and then a cook chocolate cake recipe.
Graphic edit. Mom spaghetti.
Now we have a spaghetti recipe. Again, we have this graphic edit. So if something's saying edit, that implies it might be a button, right?
Graphic edit.
But the screen reader is not telling me it's a button. So what if I hit enter?
Edits dialog.
And look at that. It was a button. So if you may run across incidences where your screen reader is telling you something is just a line of text or it's not saying button or link, but you can clearly see it's a button. That is frustrating for screen reader users because they may not know without either just trial and error or that visual feedback that, oh, I can actually activate that. So you'll want to go through and make sure that all the controls screen reader actually says what they are.
Close button.
So we have a pop-up dialog here to edit this recipe.
Ingredient required edit required selected 1 pound ground beef. Trash can icon button.
And again, we have a trash can icon instead of just a delete or remove or something.
Ingredient required. Edit required 1 button. Ingredient required. Trash. Ingredient required. Edit required 2 to 3 teaspoons. Trash.
Have a bunch
Ingredient
of different
required.
icons here.
Button cancel. Button save. Button plus add another instruct. Button trash can icon. Edit required multi-line. Add pasta. Trash can icon. Instruction required.
And we just have a bunch of edit fields in the trash can.
Heading level 1.
So I just hit escape to get out of that.
Heading level 2 graphic decorative icon.
And now I could use H to try to move by heading with a screen reader.
Decorative icon. Graphic 11 recipe. Decorative icon. 6-month average. No next heading.
And after this 6-month average thing, there are no headings on the page. So if I want to find a specific recipe as a screen reader user, I have to down
Heading
arrow.
level. Out of heading level 2. Graphic. Unlabeled graphic edit. Chocolate cake. Unlabeled graphic to get missing in chocolate cake.
There's chocolate cake.
Cook chocolate cake button. Mom spaghetti.
Now, as a experienced screen reader user, I know that I can move a little faster by hitting B to jump to the cook chocolate cake button and then hitting down arrow to go to the next recipe. But not every screen reader user will be comfortable doing that. So having, say, each of these recipe names be a heading would be very useful for for many screen reader users. And so that's this first page.
Travel by train and bus.
Here's another page that has some accessibility issues. And
Visited link.
as I go through this page,
Out of list banner landmark. Heading level 1 for your favorite destinations today. List with 3 items unbelievably convenient. Out of.
So up here,
Navigation English used.
we have something that says English and USD.
Visited link.
This just
English
appears
used. Visited link.
if
English
I
used.
press spacebar or enter,
Visited English.
not doing anything. And if I can get
N.
this to work, if I were to route the NVDA mouse cursor to this,
Choose a country. English used.
all of a sudden I have these choose a country and other controls. I, as a web accessibility tester and an advanced screen reader user, can try this. And you can, as you're moving, if you see something that looks like this should be a drop down, but you can't get it to interact with the keyboard, move your mouse over it or use the command on your screen reader to open it and see if something opens. That is a major issue for a screen reader user because the moving the mouse cursor is a very advanced thing with a screen reader, and if it doesn't come up with a keyboard, most screen reader users and keyboard only users, especially who do not use a screen reader, will not be able to access this. So just as on the previous page, I can just tab through these or down arrow and
Choose a country.
tab through these controls.
Banner landmark. Navigation landmark. List. Combo box United States collapsed.
And this drop down is not labeled with a screen reader, so when it gains focus, it should say choose a country. I'll press tab again.
English radio button check 1 of 8.
And we have some language radio buttons, but it didn't tell me what the whole thing is. So
Language.
screen reader users have essentially two modes. I should tell at this point as we're going to get into forms. One is the browse mode. I'll use the JAWS terminology for this. NVDA is similar, which is when you can navigate with the arrows and use letters like H for heading, G for graphic. I'll talk a little more about those in a second. But you can navigate through with the screen reader. Then what JAWS calls forms mode or NVDA calls focus mode, if you need to type into an edit box or select something in a control, if the screen reader is interpreting your letter presses to try to jump you around the web page, you're not going to be able to type. So that mode just lets you type in. And screen readers these days are pretty good about automatically switching into that mode when you're in a control that you need to interact with in that manner, such as an edit.
English radio button check 1. Use. Discover. Apply button. Separator. Button. Visited link discover. Visited link help. Out of list banner landmark heading level 1 by travel package.
And so we're out of that initial thing.
Heading level.
I'm just going to press F to jump by form field. So that's what we're interested in here.
From station edit required from.
So you have from station that is labeled.
Swap stations visited link. To station edit required to blank.
To station is also labeled.
1 way.
Now again, just as I showed on the other
Return.
page, we have
1 way.
controls here that just appear as text.
Return. Departing. Tuesday the 30th of June. 2300 hours. Passengers. Departing.
So if I press space on departing,
Tuesday. Passengers. Tuesday.
or
To
maybe
June
on the
2000.
date, there we go. And see again, not knowing what the actual control is makes it difficult because a screen reader user has to trial and error it.
Button today. Button tomorrow. Button 2300 hours.
And here we have a calendar widget. Now, this should probably be formatted as a table, but because it's not.
June 2020. Moan to Ed through free SAT Sun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, July 2000.
And so instead of even a grid or anything, this is just an entire one line of days.
1,
So a screen reader user would have to use commands such as the right arrow.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2,
Or let's see if control right arrow, which moves by word, works.
13, 14,
Fortunately, that does makes it a little easier.
15.
And now if I hit enter on, say, 15, will it let me select that day?
Moan to Ed 1, 2, Moan, June 2020. Button to 2330, 2300, 20, 2130.
And now there's no way
9
for
o'clock.
me. Let's see.
From station edit required visit
I just paged up a couple times.
to station 1 way. Return. Departing. Tuesday the 30th of June.
Nope, hitting enter on the 15th didn't even select the date to see if that would change the date in the calendar. So, yeah, this calendar widget, a blind person would not be able to book a thing on this site because they cannot independently select a date and time because it's not properly applicable with the keyboard. So I know we got a few more minutes for me to show. So I have one more page, but before I get there, I know I've thrown a lot at you, but really, when you're testing with a screen reader, I would recommend learning tab, arrow keys, and then some of the screen reader's web navigation keys, H for heading, G for graphic, things like that. Go through, try to interact with the different components of the site with the keyboard. Are you able to get to them with the screen reader? If you press enter or spacebar on them, does anything happen? Can you fill in the forms? Can you access the different things? If you try to move by heading, does the heading structure make sense? Heading 2 follows heading 1, heading 3 follows 2, and so on. When the screen reader encounters a graphic, does it read a logical label, or does it just say no description available, or appears to say? That is one good thing to note also, is that modern browsers such as Chrome and Edge do have the capability to attempt to automatically describe graphics. This is okay at best because it doesn't do anything with context, and so having good alternative text descriptions for a graphic is still very important, even though those browsers will try to help a bit. But just going through with the commands, looking at the different features and trying to interact with and understand the page and see if things that what the screen reader is saying makes sense. Also, when you are manual testing, this was mentioned briefly in the last, or more in depth in the last module, which you can refer to the PowerPoint, and the presentation should be coming out soon. But when you're manual testing, you don't need to go through every page of a site. Start with the most common or most important pages of a site. So, for example, if you're testing a learning management system that has a course that you're considering using for your school, you don't need to check every lesson of every module in the learning management system, but focus on representative samples. So a quiz, a test, a written assignment. If there's a discussion board, focusing on interacting with a thread in that discussion board, those types of things. That way you hit all the different types of interactions a student might have with the software or with the website, and can make a decision based on the interactions you're seeing. All right, in the last couple minutes,
Welcome to City Light.
Go here. This is the before and after demonstration from the World Wide Web Consortium. Just want to give you one more example of an inaccessible form when form controls are not labeled.
Combo box collapse quick menu dash.
So this quick menu here, I'm just jumping through the page. You can go look at the accessible versus inaccessible version at your leisure. In SortSite earlier, when it mentioned the drop down or the on mouse handler must have I think it was an on blur handler as well. This menu, if you try to just access it with a keyboard, it's going to jump you around the site whenever you select an item in here, because it's trying to go whenever
National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
Whenever one of the items in there gains focus, which is not functional.
Table with 3.
So I just jumped further into the page. So this form is not only unlabeled, it is also in a layout table, and you're going to see why not putting role equals presentation on a layout table, or not just using CSS, can be very frustrating for screen reader users.
Which is your favorite? Column 1, row 1 out of this week.
So let's go look it up a little bit.
City Highlights survey. This week's survey. More City Park. Blank. Table with 3 rows and 4 columns. Row 1, column 1 through 4.
And so we have a table here.
Row 2, column 1 through 3. Which is your favorite City Park? Column 4. Row 3, column 1. Radio button not checked.
We have an unlabeled radio button. It just says radio button. It doesn't say the name.
Blank. Radio button not checked. Blank. Radio button not checked. Blank. Column 2, none. Blank. Central Park. Blank. Grand Park.
And so what they've done here, I can use screen readers have table movement commands, which are control
Column
alt
1.
and the arrow keys that let you move across a row or up and down a column.
Column 1, radio button not checked. Radio button not checked. Radio button not checked.
So there's 3 radio buttons.
Column 2, none. Central Park. Grand Park.
And then there's the 3 labels in the second column of the table. Now, if each radio button was in each each cell and each label was in a cell, it might be slightly easier for a screen reader user to try to parse out, but even still, that would be a very annoying form to work with. So now I'm just going to press the tab key.
Table. Red dot with a white letter C up. Table. Row 1, column 1. Table. Row 1, column 2. Table. Select a city, group of dashes. Greater row 3, which city do you find is the greenest? Column 1. Combo box, select a city.
And so that one actually did read the label, but it read a whole bunch of table announcements as well. I'm going to press tab again.
Table. Row 1, column 1. Table. Row 1, column 2. Table. Name, Mr. Mrs. Email address, red email row 3. Do you want to receive a free newsletter? Column 1. Table. Name, Mr. Mrs. row 1, column 1. Radio button not check 1 of 2.
And so it just spewed a whole bunch of stuff about like 5 different labels, reread a couple of them. And so it's very difficult for a screen reader user to go through here. I'm going to press tab again.
Edit blank. Column 3. Edit blank. Edit blank. Submit button.
And that's how you know a form field is unlabeled.
Table. Edit blank. Name, Mr. Mrs. column 3. Edit blank. Edit blank.
Edit, edit, edit. If all the screen reader is just saying is edit, it's very difficult for a screen reader user to go find the label and to understand and go back to the form and type it in and go find the next label. And that is definitely one of the more frustrating inaccessibility potential issues, and one of the ones that blind users will likely abandon the site the quickest over is having that. So we have about 10 minutes left. I know we've all thrown a lot of stuff at you. And so now let's open it up for
screen sharing
questions. I will stop my screen share. Kennedy, I don't know if we want to let people unmute themselves. Yep. You can unmute yourself if you have questions or put it in the chat. It's a lot of information. If you need clarification or want any of us to go over something, or have any questions at all.
Yeah, Sarah asked earlier, once you have run your test, how do you compile a report for your results? Dan mentioned just having a spreadsheet of your findings. I sent a VPAT template.
Yep.
I've used that in the past to kind of help you keep organized. Do you have any suggestions for that, Carl?
Yeah, just a running Excel sheet or running Word document to jot down notes, having some sort of template. We have found, that depending who you're presenting to, a narrative explanation of what you found in your testing may be more useful, especially if you're presenting to, administrators or directors, people who are not involved in the testing and may not care that, this issue is there on, such and such a URL on line 25. They just want to know that there's a bunch of unlabeled form fields, which is going to make it annoying for blind users. So kind of a running Excel sheet or whatever as you're doing your testing, and then maybe compile it into a more readable format afterward.
And if you could please answer these few poll questions before you leave today, we'd appreciate it.
Any questions?
Yeah, anything from my part with low vision or testing without a screen reader or free automated tools as well, we're happy to answer. I'll make sure to get everybody the resources as well that we've been mentioning. I can email that to you. Steve, heading level 1 being used only once as a page title on a website. If formatting a Google Doc, does title effectively serve as the lone header for title, while heading 1 can be used repeatedly as a top-level header?
No, screen reader users don't generally recognize title as as anything special. So generally, heading level 1 would still be the main topic of the document. It is possible if you have very separate topics in the same document to use multiple heading ones in certain circumstances, but generally you would not want to do that unless it's like very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the time your main headings in your page are going to be heading level 2. We hope we introduce you to some digital accessibility over these 4 modules. Alrighty. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.